Have you ever seriously wondered what it's actually like to trade the concrete jungle for a quiet suburban street? Well, today we're going to break down that exact journey. We're talking about the huge lifestyle shift you make when you go from a packed city to the wide-open suburbs, all based on one person's real, first-hand experience. So yeah, let's get into it. So this is the quote that kicks the whole thing off. It's the kind of thing you say when you don't have an easy answer, right? It's the go-to response from our source who moved from New York City to Denver, and it just perfectly nails that feeling. That mix of missing the old life, being surprised by the new one, and, a real sense of satisfaction with a massive life change. And we're not just talking about a vague feeling here. No, this whole experience was broken down into 30, that's right, 30, specific, tangible, everyday changes. We're going to walk through some of the most interesting ones to really get a sense of what this kind of transformation actually looks and feels like.
What this really boils down to is a tale of two completely different lifestyles. The source material makes a great point. Different cities have their own unique cultural norms, and when you move between them, you have to seriously adjust. It's a total rethink of how you live, how you work, and how you have fun.
So we're calling this whole thing the Great Shift. It's really the core idea. You're moving away from a life that's all about shared public spaces, subways, parks, building lobbies, and into a life that's defined by your own personal space, with the car sitting right at the center of everything.
All right, so let's jump into the most immediate stuff. The changes that completely remap your daily routines right from the get-go. Okay, this first one is probably the biggest change of all. That all-powerful subway card you used for everything, gone. Replaced by a whole new universe of expenses. The car itself, gas, insurance, you name it. And the freedom of just walking everywhere, that becomes the necessity of driving everywhere. Suddenly, your own 2 feet just aren't your main way of getting around anymore. This shift also completely rewires how you shop. Forget about those quick, daily walks to Trader Joe's to grab something for dinner. Now, life is all about these big, strategic, once-a-week hauls at Costco or Target. Even the food culture changes. You go from grabbing cheap noodles in Chinatown to spending an hour exploring a massive H-Mart.
And what about your morning ritual? That iconic bodega egg and cheese sandwich? Well, that's now a DIY project you make in your own kitchen. And instead of grabbing quick takeout on your walk home, you find yourself relying on the drive-thru, a staple of the suburbs that suddenly makes a whole lot more sense when you're always in your car. So moving on from the daily habits, it's not just what you do that changes, it's what you own. There's a whole new uniform, a whole new set of tools you need for this new environment. First, let's talk about what gets shoved to the back of the closet. All those fashion-forward city clothes, the sharp suits, even those cool but totally impractical sneakers, they just don't have a place in your new day-to-day life. And what takes their place? A wardrobe built for one thing: practicality. We're talking REI co-op gear, learning how to dress in layers for crazy weather shifts, and a good solid pair of hiking shoes. Out here, being comfortable and ready for a trail, well, that's the new fashion statement. Even just preparing for the weather is completely different. In New York, an umbrella is key, right? But in a place like Denver, where the weather can flip in an instant, a waterproof shell is way more useful. And being a mile high, sunscreen isn't just a good idea, it's an absolute must, along with tons of lotion for that dry air. Your transportation also gets a major upgrade. That slick sedan, it gets swapped for a practical SUV with all-wheel drive and a ton of trunk space. The obsessive care you used to give your fancy city stroller, that's now transferred to your Subaru. And that road bike you used for commuting, it's now a mountain bike for weekend fun. And I just love this quote because it captures those small, funny, but oh-so-real struggles of a life centered around a car. You spend so much time in it, especially if you have kids, that keeping it clean becomes this constant, never-ending battle against crumbs. So beyond the gear and the logistics, this move really reshapes your social life, your home, and even the stuff you find yourself talking about with people. Your entire social vocabulary just changes. Conversations about the hot new Broadway show get replaced with treating tips on the best hiking trails. Instead of bar hopping, you're exploring the local microbrewery scene. You stop checking out fancy strollers and start admiring someone's high-tech hiking backpack. And hey, while you'll always be a Rangers fan, you gotta admit, the local team isn't so bad. And your relationship with your home? It's a total 180. In a tiny apartment, trying to sear a steak means setting off the smoke alarm. With a backyard, you're grilling for the whole neighborhood. That one screwdriver you owned is replaced by a full-on tool shed in the garage. And all those years you spend just watching HGTV? Well, you finally have the space to actually try out those design ideas.
And if you have a family, the difference is just massive. The shared playroom in the apartment building, that's now a rotating schedule of playdates at different houses all over the neighborhood. And with all that new space comes a new rule for toys. Seriously, nothing is too big.
All right, let's bring it home and look at what might be the single most powerful symbol of this entire transformation, the ultimate change in scenery.
This right here might be the most profound trade-off you make. You give up the absolutely breathtaking, man-made architecture of a city skyline, but in return, you get a view that's dominated by nature on this massive, humbling scale, a majestic mountainscape. It's just a fundamental change in what you see when you look out your window every single day.
And for the person who lived this, the verdict is pretty clear. While the city skyline is amazing, the natural beauty of the mountain view is, in their own words, clearly superior. It really says it all. It's about a new priority, a new perspective, and a new kind of beauty to appreciate.
Which kind of brings us to our final question. This journey from the city to the suburbs, it's so much more than just a new address. It's a total change in your routine, your identity, and how you see the world. And it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How much of who we are is shaped not just by our choices, but by the very ground beneath our feet.